make sounds for 20 whole minutes, and that really means a lot. Thank you. My name is Molly Balloons, because you can just choose your name. So here we are. I'm here to encourage you the best way I know how to be your fullest and most authentic selves, and that is by telling you my journey of my attempt to be my fullest and most authentic self. Flips page. A lot of people ask me, how in the heck did I become Molly Balloons? Fair question. It started when I was about 9 or 10. I have fantastic parents who have always fostered my creative side. Before I had the self-awareness to realize, like, oh, I'm an art kid, they were like, yeah, that's a creative kid. So they never signed me up for soccer. Duh! They signed me up for theater classes and ceramics, and they bought me a book on macrame and origami, and one Christmas, my mother bought me a book. I shouldn't get in that mood because I'll do that the whole time. My mother bought me a book on how to make balloons. Be careful what you buy your kids. And my brother and I tinkered around with it for a season when we were kids, and that skill had laid dormant for several years until I was running a summer camp when I was 14 going into high school, as you do when you're 14 going into high school. And I became a professional balloon artist by just announcing that I was. So I called and lied to a local restaurant in Lake where I grew up, and I said, hi, I'm a local professional balloon artist. Would you like to hire me for your kids' events? And they said, yeah. And I was like, I didn't like that. So I scrambled, and I got my balloon apron. Nailed it. I'm getting good at this. And I got my balloon apron, and I got my striped pants, and I got my Facebook page, my business cards, and I showed up in my 15 years of wisdom and knowing like 4 creations, and somebody asked for a cat, and I made them a dog, and I said, here's your cat. And it went really well, because I was 15, and they were like, this is kind of cute. So I kept after it, and while I pursued other creative and theatrical endeavors throughout high school, that in turn ended up like really making Molly Balloons, I went into high school on the dance team. I swear this is relevant to honesty. On the dance team, which like seemed like a good idea. Turns out I hated it. Oh my God, conformity. Early mornings. And like a complete lack of improvisation. And I was like, oh, okay, not my scene. Cool, quit that. And then like, oh, I became the mascot. Sorry. And that was very much so my scene. I took like real time out of my real life to edit that to go, that's me, and fade it. And that was totally my scene, and I would like listen to myself, and I was like, okay, so improvisation, we like that. Very much so standing out, we like that. The like comedic loudness of being Mr. Hawk really suit myself well, and that ended up very much so translating into my current career. And then I also obviously was really involved with theater, because my parents were wonderful, and they gave me theater, and I had jobs in county arts budgets. And so of course you go into theater as a young woman, and you're like, oh, I am leading lady material. I'm clearly the love interest. I was the comedic part, and I really found myself as that, and ended up really adoring that and becoming so much more than I ever could have had I tried to like fit myself into like lovable box. And then I also like I knew that I was not trying to go into like chemistry, and so I like to spend all my time in the ceramics room and like poured myself out into the elements of art and design that have translated really well into my balloon sculptures. And so all this time I'm like nurturing my balloon business as a side hustle, and I circled back around to it about junior year and started really like applying the same amount of effort that I was like really enjoying applying to these other areas. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna lean into this. I'm gonna like really experiment with latex art. I don't want to say it like that again. I'll say balloon art. And so I started with like abstract hats, utilizing negative space and playing around with that. And then senior year, I set myself a goal. There's me winning an award. of making a balloon dress for my senior homecoming. Because I knew the balloon dresses were a thing. I knew you could do them. I didn't invent the balloon dress. And so I set myself the goal that I would make one and I'd wear it to homecoming, and I wanted to get myself nominated for homecoming court so I can walk down the football field on homecoming game and like cause a ruckus and just like stir the pot in a fun way. And like I did. And I won. That was fun. And so then I really kept after it. I was like, okay, this has traction. I like this. And then another Christmas and another really kind gift from my parents. They gave me $100 towards Twist and Shout Balloon Convention. And that's real, first of all. And it was so fun! So there's this whole global community of balloon people, obviously. And I had been living my whole life not knowing them. And so I go off to Las Vegas in that January with my dad. They did not trust me alone. Fair. And I show up and I'm just like flabbergasted and amazed at all of these balloon people from around the world creating art that is unimaginable. And I did not know you could do things like that, and you can. And they all had this like really profound sense of creative fulfillment. They were all just like, chipper fellas. That was not what I had in my notes to call them. But they seemed chipper. And I was so drawn to it. It was intoxicating that these people had like managed to like flex the silliest things about them and make a career out of it. I mean, these are people who make parties fun for a living. It was fun. So it was like a profound bummer to go back to high school in Olathe after being in Las Vegas with balloon artists around the world. But it really was that like push that I think I needed at the time to realize like, oh, there's another way you can do all of life. You can write your own rules and just be a balloon person. And so as I approached the conclusion of my K through 10 career education, like I grew up in Johnson County, and there's a pretty solid societal inertia headed towards like college after high school. And I had to take a really solid look at that and be like, do I really want to break away that hard? But it just didn't make sense for me to go to college at that point. I already had a very fun thing going. And so I decided to break off and do my own thing and maximize my youth and my energy and also my momentum, which is real. And I kept at it, and I kind of poured myself into being Molly Balloons. And I sustained myself after high school. It's not that hard to do when you're like 18 and you don't want many things, but I still did. It was my job. And then the next significant benchmark happened, the World Series 2015. You remember. The one we all cared so much about. And I decided that I'm gonna make a balloon dress for every game of the World Series. Because who likes sleeping anyway? For context, for those of you who don't understand the inner workings of balloon dresses, which I forget that people don't, they take like at least 10 hours each, and once you start making a balloon dress, it starts deflating. So like, go. Like straight through. So that's like 10 hours straight, 14 hours straight, 20 hours straight. So I did it 6 of them in a row. And 3 things happened simultaneously. I got better at balloon dresses. There's a distinct difference between before and after. And that was the first time any Kansas City heard of me. That's nice. I put myself on the map. And then the thing I hold the most significance in is that I fell in love with balloon dresses. I wore a big ball gown to the Royals Parade. You remember the one. And it was like extrovert crack. It was so fun. There was like between 4 and 90 cameras pointed at me for like 3, 4 hours. It was like, you guys, oh yeah, I have pictures. Ta-da! More of that. No more. Stop it, you guys. And I realized the traction that balloon dresses had in the live entertainment aspect, and like the joy and the delight and the surprise that people had when they met somebody wearing balloons, and that like that push and pull as an entertainer and that like lawlessness was really intoxicating, and I was like, okay, gonna do more of this. Wow. And so I did. So that was end of 2015, start of 2016, I was like, I'm gonna do a fashion show. So I did, and it was fantastic. And I continued to flex and experiment with it as an art and do things that were kind of nonsensical. Like, I didn't even think I broke even, and I was like, let's do it again. And it, for so many reasons, it didn't make any sense, and I just couldn't be more happy I did that. I should just keep this in here. And after, so that was top of 2016, and I was still like playing around with like how to do this. And by the end of 2016, I was getting calls from like, oh, the balloon distributor. They want to sponsor a dress. Sick. Good Morning America wants what? You can have anything. And they were like, we're doing a Christmas thing. Oh, this is fun. Yay! Emotional roller coaster. And they wanted a Christmas dress, and I was like, done. And then Cosmopolitan was like, we think you're funny. Do more. Dance, monkey, dance. And I was like, I made Future Me. This was like 4 days before the election, and I was number one. I was like, that's kind of messed up, but like, I'll take it. And so then it turns into 2017. It's 2018 now. 2017 then. So it turns into 2017, and by this point I've added a lot more things into my business. I'm doing lots of large-scale installations, and I'm doing more dresses, more entertainment. I taught myself how to walk on stilts, because sometimes you're bored on Amazon. And because I continued to just lean into the things that interested me more. I didn't want to do balloons that were passé and like you'd already seen them. I wanted to like, make surprising and unexpected and fashionable art with balloons. And like, there's not a pamphlet on how to do that. You just go for it, and it went. And then I got a call from my friend Guido Verhoff in Holland, and he was like, Molly, what are you doing next week? I need you to walk on stilts in a balloon dragon in Qatar. He doesn't sound like that, he's Dutch. And I was like, Qatar. I'm like, which one? Middle East. Okay, I know where that is. And then I did that, and that like boosted more, and I continued to do a bigger and bigger job. And then, as I continued that year, I did another fashion show just around this time last year. More on that in a second. I have another one coming up. Since then, basically since last November, this whole calendar year, it stopped being a one-person job. I have employees. People listen to me and do what I say. Isn't that just a giggle? That's all the business. But it just got bigger and bigger, and people kept being interested in the things that I had leaned into that made no sense to lean into. Like, I could have just made my money doing kids' parties from the get-go, but I was like, I'm gonna go weirder and maybe a little less lucrative from the start. And now people like hire me to wear balloon dresses to their events. Swipe up. And so I continued pursuing that, and it's just this like massive, oh, squirrel. That's what a balloon dress looks like when it deflates. Isn't that funny? Now do it all in unison. Just microphones are fun. Now I'm just looking at all the pretty pictures. What was I saying? So I kept on keeping on and leaning into the bigger and more decor and doing more abstract and fashion-based, and it's brought me here, which is really bizarre that something can bring you here. My very, very favorite quote, and that is not for lack of good quotes in the world, is by Howard Thurman. Ask not what the world needs, but instead what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. So I want to give you a moment to have like that honest moment with yourself. Are you living a life and fostering a life around you where you are filling your existence with the stuff that makes your soul sing? Sing. That's gonna like echo in my mind for the rest of my existence. So take a loving and honest look at yourself and the life you've created yourself, and give yourself the chance to wonder, are there any passions or any curiosities that you are neglecting, or yearnings that you have been sidelining week after week and month after month and then year after year? And give yourself the option and like honor your own journey to like hoist it up. Are you the girl who's like, oh, I've always wanted to run my own business selling jewelry I make. Like, do that then, girl. Or like, I don't know, like, if you just been like really dying to try that new climbing gym, do that. But like some people love gardening, I don't know, like prioritize it. Do the things that you love to do even when life gets in the way. Sometimes it flourishes into a career, and sometimes it's just so worth it. And when you take that honest time with yourself, sometimes it's like a big realization, like, oh, are the people I'm filling my life with bringing me up, or are they okay to put at bay a little more and reach out to those who do rev my engines? Or maybe it's small stuff like, oh, I'm gonna wear better hats because I feel better when I do that. Or I'm gonna wear less hats, I don't know, whatever you want. More hats for me. I didn't start out my life like planning on being whatever this is, self-proclaimed balloon queen, pseudo-celebrity, balloon professional with an emphasis on fashion. Like, I didn't know that was an option for a career, but step by step, I tried to at least be really honest with myself about what is it that's really like getting me going, what do I really enjoy, what am I gonna be okay doing for a long time, because over time you just can't fake passion. And so, I just didn't want to be part of the crowd. I wanted to lead the parade. I have a friend, I'll conclude this. I have a friend, Glenn LaValle. We love Glenn. He's from Vancouver, he's a balloon guy. Glenn, for most of his life, sold insurance, which is a perfectly fine thing to do. But Glenn said that that was not his authentic self. And well into his 40s, Glenn found himself sitting on his living room floor, tinkering around with balloons. Get to entertain your nephews, like as you do. And then he really took to it, and then skipped forward just a little bit, and he's one of the world's better balloon makers, and he's full-time, and he just does that for a living. And there's so many people like that in my industry and in your industries. And I don't nod to this anecdote to suggest that balloons is the medium that you have been waiting for, and I have the answer to your problems, and it's latex. Like, that's not what I'm nodding towards. Maybe. But instead, to suggest that life is full of surprises if you can let it be so. So, ask yourself, are you doing the things that make your soul sing? And reverse engineer your bliss and then chase that bliss.